For centuries, people have passed down facts they thought were absolutely true. Teachers repeated them, parents taught them, movies reinforced them. And somehow, millions of people still believe things that are completely wrong. Some of these myths are harmless. Others are so widespread that even intelligent people repeat them without thinking twice. So, let's uncover some of the most popular facts that turn out to be totally false. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. Poor goldfish. For decades, they've been treated as the symbol of forgetfulness. People joke that a goldfish swims around its bowl, forgets everything, and gets surprised by the same castle decoration every 3 seconds. But that's not even close to reality. Scientists have found that goldfish can remember things for months. They can recognize colors, shapes, sounds, and even learn routines. Some experiments showed that goldfish could be trained to press levers and respond to feeding times. They can even distinguish between different pieces of music, which means your pet goldfish probably remembers a lot more than people give it credit for. So no, your goldfish isn't constantly rediscovering life every few seconds. Humans only use 10% of their brain. This myth has inspired books, motivational speakers, and even Hollywood movies. The idea sounds exciting. Imagine unlocking the other 90% and suddenly becoming a genius. Unfortunately, that's not how brains work. Brain scans show that almost every region of the brain has a purpose. Even while sleeping, various areas remain active. If 90% of your brain were truly useless, damage to most of it wouldn't matter. But tiny injuries can have serious effects on memory, speech, movement, and emotions. In reality, you're using your whole brain, just not all at the same time. And no, watching one inspirational video won't unlock secret superpowers. The Great Wall of China is visible from space. This one has appeared in textbooks and trivia games for years. The Great Wall is incredibly long, stretching thousands of miles. So surely astronauts can see it from space, right? Not exactly. From low Earth orbit, astronauts can see many things, including cities and roads. But the Great Wall is narrow and blends into the surrounding landscape. Most astronauts have said it's extremely difficult or impossible to spot with the naked eye. Ironically, highways, airports, and even large buildings are often easier to see. The wall is amazing, just not giant enough to stand out from hundreds of kilometers above Earth. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. This sounds poetic, but nature doesn't care about catchy sayings. Lightning strikes tall objects repeatedly. In fact, the Empire State Building gets hit around 20 times every year. Some towers around the world are struck hundreds of times annually. Lightning simply follows the easiest path to the ground. And if that path worked once, it will probably work again. So if you ever hear someone say lightning never strikes twice, remember that skyscrapers would strongly disagree. Napoleon was extremely short. Movies often portray Napoleon Bonaparte as a tiny man with a giant ego, but in reality he was about 5 feet 6 or 7 inches tall. That's roughly average for a Frenchman living in the early 19th century. So why the myth? Partly because British propaganda loved making fun of him. Another reason involves confusion between French and British measurement systems. His nickname, the Little Corporal, referred to his rank and affection from his soldiers, not his height. Napoleon wasn't unusually short. History just gave him a bad reputation. Bats are blind. Batman probably wouldn't appreciate this myth. People have repeated the phrase blind as a bat for generations. But bats can actually see. Many species have excellent eyesight. On top of that, they use echolocation, bouncing sound waves off objects to navigate in darkness. Think of it as natural sonar. So bats have two systems working together: vision and sound. That's like having GPS and a backup map at the same time. Not bad for creatures unfairly accused of blindness. Cracking your knuckles causes arthritis. Parents everywhere have warned kids about this. Stop cracking your knuckles or you'll get arthritis. The sound certainly makes some people uncomfortable. But decades of studies have found no convincing evidence linking knuckle cracking to arthritis. One doctor famously cracked the knuckles on only one hand for more than 50 years. The result? No difference between his two hands. The popping sound comes from tiny gas bubbles inside the joints. Annoying to some people? Absolutely. Dangerous? Probably not. Sugar makes kids, Hyperactive birthday parties have blamed sugar for generations. Children run around screaming after eating cake, and adults point directly at the frosting. But scientific studies tell a different story. Researchers repeatedly found little evidence that sugar itself causes hyperactivity. Interestingly, parents often believed their children were acting more energetic simply because they expected sugar to have that effect. The excitement usually comes from the environment. Think balloons, friends, games, presents, and unlimited freedom. Honestly, adults would probably go crazy too. Vikings wore horned helmets. Whenever Vikings appear in cartoons or movies, they almost always wear giant horns. It certainly looks intimidating. But historians have found no evidence that Viking warriors wore horned helmets into battle. Real helmets were practical. Horns would have made fighting awkward and dangerous. The horned image became popular during 19th century opera costumes and artwork, so Hollywood embraced the style, and the myth stuck. Sorry to disappoint, but real Vikings looked much less like heavy metal band members. Bulls hate the color. Red matadors wave bright red capes, leading many people to believe bulls become enraged by the color. But bulls are actually colorblind to red. They don't care what color the cape is. What triggers them is movement. Wave a blue towel, a white blanket, or a pink pillow around, and the bull would react the same way. The red color is mainly for the audience, and perhaps for dramatic effect. You swallow 8 spiders a year while sleeping. Few myths are as horrifying as this one. Thankfully, it's completely made up. Spiders generally avoid humans. Your mouth, breathing, and movement make you a terrible place for spiders to explore. Experts say there is no evidence supporting this claim. In fact, the story itself may have started as an example showing how easily people believe fake information, which is ironic because millions believed it anyway. So you can sleep peacefully tonight. Probably. Chameleons change color to match their surroundings. Movies portray chameleons as masters of camouflage. Place one on a checkerboard and it'll magically become a checkerboard. Not quite. Chameleons primarily change colors based on temperature, emotions, and communication. They might brighten when excited or darken when threatened. Camouflage is only part of the equation. They're basically mood rings with legs. Hair and fingernails continue growing after death. This creepy myth appears in horror stories all the time. But once a person dies, hair and nails stop growing. What actually happens is that the skin loses moisture and shrinks. As the skin pulls back, the hair and nails appear longer. It's an optical illusion, still creepy, but not supernatural. Different parts of the tongue. Taste. Different flavors. Remember those tongue maps showing sweet at the tip and bitter at the back? Turns out they're wrong. All taste buds can detect sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and savory flavors. Some areas may be slightly more sensitive, but there are no isolated flavor zones. Your tongue isn't divided into departments, it's more like an all-purpose tasting machine. Camels store water in their humps. This sounds perfectly logical, but camel humps don't hold water, they store fat. When food becomes scarce, camels can convert those fat reserves into energy. Their bodies are simply incredibly efficient at conserving water. So the hump is basically a survival battery, not a built-in water tank. Conclusion. The funny thing about myths is that they often survive because they're simple, memorable, and repeated over and over again. And sometimes the things we believe most confidently are the things we've never bothered to question, which makes you wonder, how many facts that everyone believes today will turn out to be completely wrong tomorrow? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.